Miami had always been a city of sun-soaked beaches, neon lights, and wild parties. Every year, my friends and I took a vacation somewhere new, and this time Jay, our de facto trip planner, had chosen Miami. For his bachelor party, he said he wanted something big, something unforgettable. And knowing Jay, I knew he meant it. But none of us knew just how unforgettable this trip was going to become. Our group consisted of 5 of us who'd been close since college. Me, Jay, Alex, Martin, and Sam. We arrived on a Friday, rented a sprawling beachfront house, and spent the day settling in, already talking about the bars and clubs we'd be hitting up that weekend. That night, as we sat on the deck with a few beers, Martin leaned in with a grin. "You guys won't believe what I heard," he said, lowering his voice like he was sharing a secret. "What now?" Jay asked, laughing. "All right, so you know how celebrities are always throwing these crazy parties around here?" Martin began, his tone mysterious. "Apparently, P. Diddy has one of the wildest secret parties in Miami. Invitation only, and it's legendary. But there's this weird catch. I heard he has this ritual involving baby oil. You know, like an initiation thing." We all snorted with laughter, picturing Diddy standing around with baby oil, hosting a ritual. But Martin was adamant, even going as far as saying his cousin's friend had gone to one of these parties years ago and came back different. He had us hooked. Jay's eyes lit up at the idea, and soon, he was determined to crash this party, even if we didn't have an invitation. The next night, fueled by a few too many drinks and Martin's story, we set off in search of the rumored party. Martin's cousin had mentioned that the parties often happened in a massive estate along the quieter stretch of beach on the north side of town. So, we made our way there, half joking about how we'd sneak in and half hoping we'd actually find the party. The house was just as grand as we'd imagined, a huge mansion sprawling out towards the beach, and the faint sound of bass pulsed in the distance. We weren't sure if this was the right place, but it seemed close enough. As we got closer, we saw 2 men in black suits by the door, and people dressed in all white moving through the house, shimmering in the dim light. Somehow, Martin managed to sweet-talk the guards. He told them we were on the list and waved his phone around, acting like we were supposed to be there. I don't know if they bought it or if they just didn't care, but they waved us through. Once inside, we were enveloped in the luxurious glow of chandeliers and dim neon lights, pulsating to the rhythm of electronic music. Celebrities and models moved through the crowd, and the energy was intoxicating. The night felt surreal, like we were stepping into another world. It wasn't until later in the night that I saw him, P. Diddy himself, standing near the back of the room, surrounded by an entourage. He was holding a small, ornate bottle, and next to him stood a woman with an almost hypnotic look in her eyes, moving her fingers through the air in a slow, mesmerizing rhythm. He poured a thick, shimmering liquid into his hands, rubbing it over his arms, his face, and finally over his chest. The liquid glowed under the neon lights, giving him an otherworldly appearance. People around us started whispering, and I heard someone mention the shiny pact. Jay, of course, was fascinated and started nudging us, saying, "This is it. This is what we came for." Diddy lifted the bottle into the air, his voice commanding the attention of the crowd. "Once you're marked by the pact, you're one with the depths," he announced, his voice carrying through the room. "The glimmer calls to you, and you belong to the abyss." The crowd chanted something under their breath, and before I knew it, Jay was moving towards the front, as if in a trance, his eyes fixed on the shimmering liquid. I tried to pull him back, but he was determined. He reached out, his hand shaking as he took a small amount of the oil from the woman by Diddy's side, rubbing it over his arms, his chest, even his face. "Jay, what are you doing?" I hissed, but he just looked at me with a dazed expression. I can feel it," he whispered, his eyes wide. "I can feel them." As soon as the oil touched his skin, his face changed. He looked both terrified and fascinated, as if he was experiencing something beyond words. His eyes glazed over and he muttered, "They're here. I can see them." The energy in the room shifted, becoming heavier, darker. The music grew louder, and a strange hum filled the air. I glanced around, and everyone else who had taken the oil had the same glazed look in their eyes, moving in sync, as if controlled by something unseen. Jay's breathing grew rapid, his eyes darting around as if he was seeing things no one else could. He stumbled back, clutching his head, muttering about shapes in the shadows, about something ancient and dark. Before I could react, he pushed through the crowd and vanished out of the back door, leaving me and the others in stunned silence. We spent hours searching for Jay, but it was as if he'd disappeared into thin air. Alex, Martin, and I scoured the beach, calling his name, trying to piece together what had happened. Eventually, we went back to the house, hoping he'd return, but he never did. The next morning, Alex woke me up, pale-faced and shaking. "Dude, you have to see this," he said, handing me his phone. On the screen was a news report detailing the disappearance of a young man on the beach. They'd found his clothes near the shore, drenched in oil, but there was no sign of him. We spent the next few days in a state of shock, trying to reach Jay's family, telling them we didn't know what had happened. The police questioned us, but we couldn't tell them much. I felt the weight of guilt pressing down on me, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jay's face, twisted in fear, his eyes wide with some terrible realization. A week later, I received a text. It was from Jay's number. My heart raced as I opened it, hoping for some explanation, some miracle. The message was short. "I'm here, but it's not me. The glimmer calls. Stay away." I tried to call the number, but it went straight to voicemail. In a panic, I showed the others and we spent hours trying to trace the message, but it was useless. Jay was gone, lost to whatever darkness he'd touched. Months passed, and life returned to a fragile semblance of normalcy. But every so often, I'd catch a glimpse of someone in the street, covered in that familiar iridescent sheen, their eyes vacant, their movements unnatural. And each time, I'd feel that creeping dread, that sense of being watched. One night, as I lay in bed, I felt a cold, wet sensation on my arm. I sat up, gasping, and looked down to see a faint shimmer on my skin. The oil, impossibly, was there, soaking into my flesh, binding me to the pact. I heard a whisper in my ear, a voice that sounded like Jay's, telling me about the abyss, about the darkness that calls to those marked by the oil. And I knew, with a sickening certainty, that I'd been touched by something beyond my control. I could feel it, the presence of something ancient, something waiting for me to make my way to the shore, to the waves, to the depths where the glimmer resides. Now, I wake every night to the sound of the ocean, the pull of the tides calling me closer, whispering promises of power, of secrets hidden in the darkness. I know that one day, I'll follow that call, just like Jay did, and I'll become one with the glimmer, lost to the depths. So if you ever hear rumors of the shiny pact, if you ever find yourself invited to a party that feels a bit too secretive, turn back. Walk away, because once you're marked, there's no escape. The abyss calls and it's patient. It knows you'll come eventually,